Project 2025 will destroy America. Look it up.
As President Biden's campaign continues to try to rebound from his rough debate performance, there's been an effort to turn the attention to his opponent Donald Trump and his connection to something that's called Project 2025. Welcome to News 8 at 5:30, everyone, for our Commitment 2024 coverage. I'm Brian Roach.
I'm Susan Shapiro. The Democratic National Committee launched a new billboard campaign saying the same thing you just heard President Biden say. Google it, urging voters to learn more about the project. News 8 has received emails and calls from viewers wondering what it is and its connections to Trump. So we went through the 900-plus page docket put together by more than 100 conservative-leaning groups.
News 8's Thasmin Mahfouz is getting the facts in this Commitment 2024 deep dive on Project 2025.
Project 2025 has become a bit of a call to action for the Republican Party. The 900-page political playbook is handcrafted by conservative political leaders to make a possible Trump transition as smooth as possible by hitting the ground running with executive orders and policies. Project 2025 is actually just a nickname, with the full title being Mandate for Leadership 2025, the Conservative Promise.
We are in the process of the Second American Revolution, which will remain bloodless if the left allows it to be.
That was Kevin Roberts, the president of the influential right-wing organization, the Heritage Foundation. They are the central party behind Project 2025, with Roberts making that alarming statement on a podcast hosted by former Trump advisor Steve Bannon, who's currently in prison serving a contempt of Congress conviction. Now, the project consists of a few major goals outlined in their mission statement: centralize power in the executive branch, i.e. the president, dismantle the administrative state, defend the nation's sovereignty and borders, and secure God-given individual rights to live freely. So what does that all mean? Well, some of the proposals include putting the Justice Department entirely under the president's control, to also further restrictions on abortion rights, wanting every elected Republican in state or federal government to, quote, push as hard as possible to protect the unborn in every jurisdiction. It calls for expanding the military in the name of defense, and that the Department of Homeland Security should be dismantled in the name of savings. It calls federal civilian employees, quote, largely underworked, overcompensated, and unaccountable, and wants thousands of those nonpartisan government jobs given to Republican loyalists.
Project 2025 is a huge political wish list for a new administration, but we have to remember sometimes wishes do come true. Every new presidential administration comes in with certain general policy goals, but there's a lot of detail that needs to be put into those general goals. It's operations like this, producing documents like this, 2025, that provides those details.
The plan also pushes for tax breaks for churches and church schools. It goes after health agencies which back, quote, un-American mask and vaccine mandates, and says pornography should be outlawed. And while it does not define porn, it says even librarians caught with it should be registered as sex offenders. The issues don't stop on the social front either. The agenda takes aim at long-standing federal agencies like the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, also known as NOAA, which our storm team meteorologists reference to all the time to track severe storms. The Consumer Financial Protection Bureau is also referenced in it. That agency protects consumers from unfair, deceptive, or abusive financial practices and takes action against companies that break the law. It's something the News 8 On Your Side team references all the time. Democrats the nation over have been loudly airing out their concerns with Project 2025. Even Pennsylvania Democratic Senator John Fetterman says that voters need to be paying more attention.
Trump is all about Project 2025. I mean, that's what we really should be voting on right now. It's like, do we want the kind of a president that is all about Project 25? And anyone can read on that because that's what Trump is all about.
This document is creepy. It's a takeover of the American form of government, and it's a collection of extreme MAGA ideas that's going to ruin our way of life.
So let's talk about the Trump connection here. The former president and Republican frontrunner is keeping the project at a bit of an arm's length, saying he doesn't know anything about it. The former president saying on Truth Social, quote, I have no idea who is behind it, and he claims that he disagrees with some of the things they're saying. That despite the fact he's mentioned hundreds of times in the document, and most of the team that put it together are former members of his staff. Let's go through it. The project is led by two former Trump administration officials. First, we're seeing Paul Dans, who was chief of staff at the Office of Personnel Management and serves as director of the project. Spencer Creighton, former special assistant to Trump, and now the project associate director. Project 2025 senior advisor John McEntee, a former Trump White House advisor, said as recently as April that he was working to integrate the project into the Trump campaign. Some major Republican lawmakers have been asked what they think about the project.
Think tanks do think tank stuff. They come up with ideas, they say things. I like Heritage Foundation. I agree with some of the things they stand for. I've seen plenty of write-ups, frankly, not just from left-wing think tanks, but from columnists and others who are opinion writers who have actually come up with crazy ideas that are now the policies of the United States under Joe Biden. Things like, I don't know, letting people into our country and releasing them because there's no danger.
President Biden and Vice President Harris are making Project 2025 a political talking point of this campaign, which is why we've heard so many of you asking for an explanation on what it is. The document states that these proposed actions would all be taken within 180 days of a potential Trump inauguration, January 20th, 2025, hence the name Project 2025. Again, Trump has not openly accepted this plan as his own, so to be clear, this is not a sure thing, even in the event that Trump is elected. But if you want to read the entire docket for yourself, it's all available to read for free on project2025.org. Getting the facts, I'm Tasmin Mahfouz, WGAL News 8.